Football Manager has just had its biggest update so far. I'm going to go through the patch notes today, let you know my thoughts. There's quite a lot to get into, let's buckle up. Yes, very rudely, Sports Interactive have decided that midway through me recording tomorrow's transfer special, they're going to drop the biggest patch of the years thus far, with a whole load of patch notes. So I figured today we'd go through these as a word of warning. There's a lot of updates going to the game, and a few images of stuff going on too. We're going to go through all of this today, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. Now, first things first, this is the build that came out on the Steam beta track last week. It's now available for Steam, Epic Game, and Microsoft Store PC users, and the update has also been released for console and touch. So yeah, if you're on any platform, you should be on this version of the game now. And the easiest way to know if you're on the new update is simply to load up Football Manager, and in the top left, if you see 26.1.0, you're on the new build. This major update is going to bring a substantial number of changes, bug fixes, and feature introductions. And yeah, there's an emphasis on enhancing immersion and player experience. Now, I've seen a lot of discussion around immersion. I actually think the definition of this kind of varies for different people, and I think there's some stuff in this update which people are going to be really happy with. It's going to keep them more immersed, more engaged, but I feel like if you're someone who maybe, I don't know, doesn't feel like part of a footballing world playing Football Manager right now, there's not stuff in it that I think is maybe going to solve that for you. Shouts are back, the match engine's been fine-tuned, and they've made tweaks to the variety and relevance of the news items shown in the portal, which I think is a good thing. That's the kind of thing that I think can help with immersion. Give me some nice inbox items, give me useful inbox items that give me a kind of trail of breadcrumbs where suddenly, 5 clicks later, I'm on the Venezuelan under-21s national team looking at youth players. Because I don't do that anymore in FM26. Also, Football Manager is now available to play in Arabic. Of course, Arabic is written right to left, and I have to imagine with all the UI issues FM26 has had, that's been a bloody nightmare. It's probably why that language is a little late coming to the game. Anyway, let's talk about the highlights of the updates. The big one is matchday shouts are back. Seen a lot of discourse around this. They didn't work. Some people are saying that's not what the thing is. No, they do work. Shouts work. They just don't work how Football Manager really long-term want them to work. The way in which a shout works is you pick a shout, as you guys know, it then gets queued up a bit like a tactical change would, and it then is kind of played out and comes into effect when the ball leaves play. And the way in which a shout actually works is based on the game state, personality of your players, and a few other different factors. The shout will have a positive or negative effect that basically changes the balancing of some of their attributes just slightly. The easiest one to think of is if you shout calm down to your players, that's going to lower their aggressiveness a little bit. Of course, if you encourage players when they're 4-0 down, I don't know for certain what the values are that change. Maybe their work rate drops. They just think, why am I being encouraged? We're losing 4-0. But yeah, that's how shouts worked previously. That is how the shouts are working again now. And if you have been on the Steam public beta track, you'll know, for all intents and purposes, the shouts are just the same as they were in FM24. So if you love them and miss them, they're back. If you didn't use them, you're probably not going to love this update. Anyway, you mentioned the updated match engine. We're going to talk about the specifics of that a little bit later. Polish and refinement done to the UI, I'll be honest. I've seen a few bits where the UI looks better. There's a few bits where the UI has more issues than it used to have. I feel like we are going to be seeing a bit of whack-a-mole when it comes to UI updates, where they fix 2 things and 1 thing gets broken, but that is just software development, really. The next thing Football Manager have added is fully customizable attribute colors. To do this, you are going to go to audio and visual, and where previously you could pick from presets, you can now click an edit colors option, and from here you can pick specific colors for all the different attributes. And it's also worth noting you can also change the threshold ranges here. So if you're in a lower league save game where maybe 12 is an elite number for an attribute, you can now change that here. One little thing that I'm going to just slide into this video in case someone from Sports Interactive is watching, it'd be great if this setting specifically was available kind of to be set per save game. If I'm doing a lower league save game, it's useful to have excellent be players with 15 or higher. But if I'm managing in the Premier League, 12 or higher is not very useful, and having to change these settings between save games you're playing is a little bit annoying. And there are also some other colour customization options here. So if you're colourblind or there's just certain colours that you didn't really like, those can now all be adjusted. Various tweaks and improvements to transfers. We'll hope they give some more details on this. The ability to schedule friendlies for the youth team, that is a good one. Updated various competitions and rules. I do want to go on a little tangent about that later on in the video, because I am shocked at how many issues there were with competitions and rules in FM26. They've also improved the news shown for you and the functionality to import/export attribute templates in the in-game editor. I don't know. Do you use that? Does anyone use that? If you do, Happy days. Often with these videos, I try and make them nicely highly edited and polished. Naturally, with the nature of this video, this is going to be a more kind of podcasty, chatty, rather than vacuum-packed TikTokified video. So, yeah, stick me on in the background while you play the new Football Manager update or you go about your business. Yeah, we're going to get into the technical things first, starting with extensive crash and stability fixes. Good. I feel like at this point, if there's any more crashes that are regularly occurring in the game for users, that's kind of inexcusable. I feel like it was inexcusable after the beta period, to be honest, where a lot of issues were reported, but good to see there is still improvements being made there. Improvements made to in-game translations, added customization options for users to be able to choose attribute and positional coloring. We've just covered that. That is a really, really nice change. Fixed an issue with custom files where they couldn't be loaded if they were renamed in File Explorer. I'm going to be real with you. I feel like when we look through some of these bugs, there's going to be bugs that no one actually knew about. One person encountered them, and they're going to be kind of hilarious. The fact you could rename a tactics file outside the game and then it just didn't work in-game, kind of mental. They've improved the saving and selecting of custom training schedules. I don't think they've touched the wider training schedules screen, which, to be honest, it is one of my top 5 kind of least favourite design screens currently in the game. So whilst I'm grateful for there being some polish here, this is one of those things where I think this screen needs not just refinement, it kind of needs redesigning. Anyway, they fixed an issue where the fixture tab wouldn't appear when viewing the calendar via the keyboard shortcut or bookmark button. Hallelujah, that has been really annoying for me in my videos. Improved drag and drop functionality of the squad planner. Fixed an issue where the database language cannot be set separately to the game language. Fixed a very rare issue, love very rare issues, where saves imported from FM24 were unable to advance. If you had that issue, please let me know. What were you doing? The fact that it says very rare makes me think no one watching this video is going to have had this problem. They've also fixed an issue with preventing users attending a job interview with a custom database ported from FM24. Now, I will say, stuff like this, where it's a hyper niche issue, I'm actually glad that they kind of take this stuff seriously. I know we discussed kind of the consolification a little bit of this game and the kind of designing the game all for one set of users. Obviously, custom databases are only available for PC users, and the fact that they are addressing custom databases ported from FM24, like that's the niche of the niche. But the fact it's been changed, absolutely great. Reworded all descriptions of keyboard shortcuts and added a tooltip on processing speed / estimated game speed on quick / advanced start. Match engine and match experience. Now, hope we're going to get some good changes here. Obviously, first one, shouts have been reintroduced. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Tweaks to the frequency of players shooting at the near post from tight angles. Improvements to defender reactions against opposition dribbling. And tweaks made to the line defenders hold when defending in their own box. Kind of feel like these all work together. It's definitely been prevalent, and I've seen it in my kind of save games. Players kind of dribbling past defenders just in the wide areas and then just smashing it into the side netting. I found that if you put low crosses on, that actually encouraged the players to shoot a little less from tight angles, but obviously that's not an ideal fix because I'd rather not be forced to use a team instruction for an issue with a match engine, but that has now been fixed here. Improved logic to defenders' decision-making with headers when not under pressure. That was a massive issue on goal kicks. When the opposition had a goal kick, or you had a goal kick and it went all the way over everyone to the centre-back, even if the centre-back had time just to nod it down sensibly, almost all the time they just head it straight back to the team that took the goal kick, and it was very, very annoying. I feel like that's one of those things that as soon as you noticed it, very hard to not notice anymore. Also improved attacking movement of players during counter-attacking transitions, and various other match AI tweaks. I'll be honest, I've been playing on the Steam beta track for the last kind of few days. I do feel like the match engine is better, but if you're expecting some revelationary experience, you're probably not going to get it here. Fixed an issue where the disallowed goal caption appeared earlier than the VAR animation. Absolutely great stuff. The fact that VAR had no jeopardy whatsoever was kind of a bit crap. Now, if a goal is scored and then ruled out, you actually go through the motions, as opposed to seeing goal disallowed, then the VAR pop-up pops up. Stuff like that, the fact that's taken this long to fix, I'll be honest, I think is a bit bad, but at the same time, what more can Sports Interactive do than fix this stuff now, I guess, is the mindset we have to take. But there are issues here that I just feel like shouldn't have been in the game at launch. And to be fair, I'm sure if they had their time back, they'd probably try and avoid it being in launch too. Anyway, fixed an issue where substitutes made at halftime were not made immediately. Youth coaches will now rotate the players more in youth matches. That's a really, really good change. Fixed the floating floodlights issue in nighttime games when playing the tactical or dynamic sideline cameras. Saw a few different creators complaining about that, so that's a good fix. Fixed the captain indicator not appearing in the Conference League pre-match lineup. Issues like this, They're the kind of issues where I think, does this need to be in the patch notes really? Like, does it need to be here? Apparently it does. Did anyone notice this? If you did, well done. It's fixed for you now. Anyway, fixed an issue where a red card would incorrectly show for both teams in the men's Champions League matches. Winter balls will no longer be used if the weather is only raining. I really hope they fix the amount of rain in the game. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. My save game at the moment, Park to Prem, literally rains every game. Even after the update, I don't think I've noticed it raining less. Although, admittedly, I've not played that many games on the new update. Anyway, they fixed an issue where event captions were shown all at once when switching out of commentary-only highlights, fixed kit clashes, improvements made to the match momentum graph, and then lots of 2D classic fixes. For the 2D massive out there, rejoice. Anyway, UI, and this is kind of what I mentioned earlier, extensive polish and refinement done to the UI. I feel like there's certain screens where they're just polishing a turd and the turd kind of needs to be redesigned. And admittedly, in some instances, maybe it's a case of polish now, but redesign the turd later. We kind of saw that a little bit with the custom attribute colours. That came about a month ago in an update with 4 presets. And then in this update, they've now made the colours fully customizable. So maybe they're doing a similar approach here with some of the stuff they fixed. Anyway, improvements made to the squad comparison screen within Scout Report. Wage budget / payroll on tiles and widgets will now display in the correct weekly, monthly, yearly format in line with user preferences. The transfer activity tile now states the number of days until the window opens and closes. Added a recently viewed players option on the player comparison screen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Obviously, they added in as a band-aid fix the ability to compare a player at your club with players on your shortlist or a player that you're looking at with players on your shortlist. A recently viewed players option, like they've literally solved my biggest issue with the player kind of comparison screen. I actually feel like that's quite a major fix, but maybe that just reflects on how I play the game. The iTool tip will now appear next to players on the Goal 50 and next-gen news items. Can we get a Scout All button, please? Can we have a Scout All button? Like, I love the eye tooltip, being able to mouse over a player and see the eye. It's good. A Scout All button for the Next Gen award would be very nice, please. Users can now add players from their youth squad to their squad planner. I feel like no one noticed that because no one uses the squad planner. Fixed an issue where the commercial summary news item did not display the names and shirts of most sold shirts. Yeah, they were cut off at the bottom. I had a little rant on stream about that. By the way, if you didn't know, we stream on YouTube and Twitch. If you want to see me react to updates kind of as soon as they come out and also watch our Norwich City save game at the moment, you can check it out. It's on YouTube. So if you subscribe, maybe you'll get notified if YouTube's notifications decide to work that we are streaming. Or you can just follow me on Twitch. Users can now open past match reports when playing in low resolution. The clear all button now functions as intended when viewing a list of player recommendations. The correct fixture results now appear in the club site About Club latest results section. Fixed an issue where in and out of possession roll tiles would sometimes show the incorrect position for players. Own goals scored are no longer duplicated in the calendar. Club hyperlinks on the club reports now function as intended. The recruitment focus tile now displays the active number of focusers instead of the total number of focusers. Fixed an issue where the FM menu couldn't be closed when clicking on the X button. That sounds bloody annoying, doesn't it? The medical centre tile now displays the correct information on a player's risk of injury. The shortlist tile now updates in real time. That's really, really nice. Previously, I think when you updated your shortlist, you had to hit continue for it all to update. So the fact that that has kind of been updated is nice. The transfer window tile no longer displays as closed when the user declines to make an offer message. The match momentum legend now displays the displayed colours in the card and tile. Enabled sorting by player and expected playing time in the playing times expectation for new season portal message. The defensive line tile no longer appears twice in all instructions out of possession tab. Yeah, that was weird. The defensive line just showed up twice and it made no sense. I will also say with these patch notes, I'm going to read through them all. Where I have stuff to add to them, I'm going to add my commentary. That is why you're here. Otherwise, you could just read these yourself. At the same time, there are some bits and bobs here where I feel like we can just blitz through it a little bit. This next one I've had about a million issues trying to say. Let me try again. Fixed an issue where the mark-specific player list of players only appeared after reopening the instruction card. No idea why that one took me 10 takes to do. Let's move on. Fixed an issue where the mini pictures weren't appearing in the formation picker suggested tab. Fixed an issue where the season date text displayed within transfer history and card was incorrect. The XG bar will now be coloured correctly on the data hub. Hallelujah. The data hub. That's the first time it's been mentioned. I'm hoping it's not the last. There's lots of fixes needed to the data hub. There's lots of stuff that just doesn't work with it. Fix the squad planner type tab not being highlighted when opening. Various search filters within the player database now function as intended. International caps, scouting knowledge, days since last scouted, player footedness, to name a few. So yeah, those filters weren't working before. They are now. The position map now displays appropriately for youth candidates. Yeah, the pitch, it was like a horizontal football pitch, but it was the wrong way round. It had goalkeepers at the top and attackers at the bottom. There was nowhere else in Football Manager where the pitch was like that way around. So hooray, they fixed it. Improved the colour contrast of the reset button and the card's background on the code of conduct message. Some of these are so oddly specific, aren't they? Transfers, loans and wages. I would love to know, by the way, your thoughts on the transfer AI in Football Manager so far. I've not played enough in this update to really give you a good opinion on this one, but my experience prior to this update has been a lot of the bigger teams just don't really change their team that much. Chelsea seem to spend money, but that's Chelsea. But a lot of other teams, you get kind of 3 or 4 years into the future, they might only have 1 or 2 new signings in their starting 11, which is a little bit odd. Hopefully that's been fixed. First fix, various tweaks to men's transfer values across multiple nations, tweaks made to AI club loan offers, tweaks made to intermediary suggestions, improved various transfer-related logics for Saudi clubs. Saudi Arabia maybe going to spend less money now, which is a shame if you're managing in the Premier League. Been able to sell some good players to them. Anyway, improved wage and transfer distribution logic to AI clubs, improved advice consistency between transfer and contract negotiations, improvements made to the AI transfer negotiations when using a buyback fee or alternative dates transfer date. So that's good, because I feel like sometimes if you put the signing date at the end of the season, the club wouldn't actually ask for a lesser amount, which in real life, if a player's getting towards the end of their contract, they probably would. The fact that it says improvements makes me wonder if the buyback fee is a slightly different one. Maybe if you just put a really big buyback fee, teams would accept it. I do feel like in general, where they say improvements or tweaks, I appreciate with this list, it's very, very long. It'd almost be nice if they just gave us some specific examples rather than us having to speculate on what has actually changed. Reduce the transfer budget for women's teams to more realistic levels in relation to club finances, tweaks to players' wage demands in women's football, improved AI logic when using buyback clauses in women's football, tweaks to players' interest for high-profile free agents. That's going to be interesting. I saw a few instances of weird stuff going on where you'd have high-profile free agents drop down the league. I saw one save game where John Duran was released from his Saudi club and signed for Wickham in League One after 2 seasons, which I'm going to go ahead and say that probably shouldn't happen, should it? Fixed an issue where AI clubs would include future fees in loan deals for players with less than 12 months remaining on their contracts. I think I used that once, so that's annoying that that's been fixed. Added a sign replacement first option back into the main transfer negotiation. Wait, that wasn't in the game. When did that get removed? Has that just not been in FM26? Did anyone notice? I hadn't noticed. Do people really use that? The sign replacement first? I feel like that's the option that I only see the AI use against me when it's deadline day and I'm trying to sign their best player, but maybe that's just me. AI clubs will now set more realistic goals during negotiations for loan players. Fixed an issue where AI clubs would ask for the loan back of a player who's already out on loan. Tweaks made to ensure that AI clubs only make offers for clubs for players that they can afford. I had an issue recently where I was managing Manchester United, and in Italy you're only allowed a certain number of non-EU players, and various Italian teams were making offers for my non-EU players even though they were already at the limit. Kind of reminds me a bit of this, where teams are signing players they can't afford. I don't know if that's been fixed. If that appears now later on in these updates, I'll be quite happy. Fixed an issue where the user would receive transfer offers when selecting multiple players to be loan listed. Improved the messaging surrounding users who are unable to enter the contract negotiation for a player that has no interest. Fixed an issue where a player would lose a work permit after joining permanently in a mandatory future fee deal. That sounds safe-breaking, doesn't it? Wage percentages now populate correctly when the user switches from transfer offer to the loan offer tab. Reduction in the number of non-negotiable transfer offers made by the AI for youth players. I had that a lot, where I'd maybe sign youth players, and then the AI would make a loan offer for my youth players, make it non-negotiable, and it'd be a loan, but they want to buy the player that I've just signed, for less than I've signed him for. So again, hopefully that's something that's been fixed. Adjustments made to how AI will offer minimum fee release clauses. Users can now make player near retirement have a staff-only contract. Player wages will now display correctly, even when exceeding the maximum amount the user can offer within the contract offer tool. Fixed an issue where offering a player via transfer room caused the action to be inactive for a month. That sounds annoying. The correct reasoning will now be given when a user selects cancel proposal for a player currently under offer within the transfer room out card. The wage budget now updates in real time within the recruitment budgets tile when the user alters the budgets. That is a little bit like the shortlist thing I mentioned. Previously, you had to continue forward to have the budgets updated. That updating in real time is really, really nice. They've also fixed an issue where the set for release and instruct director of football to negotiate renewal actions did not function correctly within the contract set to expire message. The correct amount that is deducted from next season's transfer budget will be displayed within the set to move on the loan portal message. I don't know what that means. There's some things I'm reading here and I'm just nodding going, I hope you at home understand what's listed, because I don't know what they're talking about. The offer contract action will now become inactive after making an offer for a player. The playing monthly fee will now correctly display within the loan offer message. That is a nice quality of life change. Fixed an issue where the wage after international appearances clause wasn't functioning correctly for players who already had caps. I'll tell you what, if you knew that was a bug, you could abuse that, couldn't you? Fixed an issue where the player's wage percentages when offering out a player via transfer room or loan would sometimes appear as NA. We're now on the miscellaneous section. I should say, with these update videos, is it good that I go through all the notes? Would you rather I just distill it into the big headline news? This is the biggest patch we've had so far, so I kind of want to read all of it. Equally, there's probably only 50% of this is relevant to different people watching. Although maybe the 50% that's relevant to you is different to the 50% for someone else. I don't know. Let me know what you think of this video so far down below. Improvements to the variety and relevance of news items shown in the For You tab. I mean, that is good because the news tab, I think, is a good way to, for some users at least, to get immersed in the game, to give you an idea of what's going on in the world around you. I feel like in FM26, I feel very much in a bubble, and I don't feel incentivized to follow breadcrumbs outside of my comfort zone to see what else is going on in the game. So if you can start to bring those kind of crumbs that I'm going to follow to screens I do go to, like the For New Use tab, that is good. Admittedly, I do feel like sometimes the For New news screen I don't really go to that often. On the portal screen, you kind of have your news inbox items going through. Maybe it has a knock-on effect there. I feel like I want the news brought to me rather than me having to go to the For You news tab. Why is that such a mouthful? In order to see stuff. Anyway, fixed issues related to the UEFA coefficient calculations for bonus points and playoff round results. That is a major fix. There's been some big old issues with coefficient stuff. Nothing too terribly game-breaking as far as I'm aware. But if you have been doing kind of a building a nation save where you're slugging it out in the qualifying rounds of Europe, that has been a factor. You can now arrange friendlies for your youth team. Woohoo! Celebrate, everyone. Fixed an issue where under 21 players with 2 years left at the club were unable to play in the Champions League. Fixed an issue where you could register more players than required via the Ask Assistant to Pick option. I mean, that sounds quite useful, maybe. If you could go over the limit, that'd be great, wouldn't it, as a bug? Added some new press conference questions. Don't care about that. Improved the attribute distribution for new-gen goalies. That is a good change. I've seen some examples where people had goalies with like 18 passing and like some really good outfield attributes, but they were actually useless as goalies. So that is a nice little change there. Fixed an issue where the user would be informed about a female youth player being released when they're playing in a men's league and vice versa. I think I had that in one of my save games, actually. Fixed an issue where youth candidates item would appear multiple times within the portal message. Can't say I had that one. Functionality added to send B-team staff on coaching courses. Someone has noticed that, and that's been ruining their save game. I'm really happy that solved things for them. I am. 99% of us were never going to notice that issue. Fixed issue where text incorrectly stated that signing a player would fulfill the promise of developing players using the club's youth system. I'll tell you what, is there anything worse than when you're trying to fulfill a promise by signing another player and you sign them and it doesn't work? Imagine the game telling you it's going to fulfill the promise and then it doesn't. I would be fuming. Fixed an issue where there was no option in a team unhappiness meeting to explain that a player wanted you to accept a transfer offer. That sounds like a useful option to have. Fixed an issue with prize money, where it incorrectly stated the club drew when in fact they won. Changing the collective win bonus now happens in real time. This was another one of those things where previously you had to hit continue for it to update. So the fact that that updates in real time is really good. More accurate commercial income for high reputation women's clubs. Nice change if you're managing in women's football. AI teams will no longer attempt to actively recruit managers when their league is not loaded. If that's user managers, if you were getting job offers from teams not in leagues loaded, that'd be quite funny. I assume that's not what this is, sadly. Various improvements made to AI club logic when sacking their managers. Fixed an issue where a player would get upset over being sold despite only leaving on loan. Actions and observations on the meeting summaries now display correctly. Fixed an issue where the board would always give you more time in the last chance meeting. I'll tell you what, for the Dr. Benjis of this world, that was a great bug, wasn't it? So if you ever just pleaded with the board for more game time, they gave you it. They gave you more matches to save your job. Someone is a grass. Someone has snitched a Football Manager for them to find out that's an issue. And whoever it is, you're scum. We could have helped the new players out. You've ruined it for them. Fixed an issue where human managers will not get offered a new contract by the board. Saw a lot of people complain about that. Kind of Premier League people who get promoted to the Premier League, then not get given a new contract and go into month-to-month deals. So that is a really nice change there. The club vision choices will no longer include preliminary rounds if you qualified directly for the Champions League. I feel like that's been a bug for more than just this year, but RIP. Competitions, stages, XG table now has the correct calculations. That's good. Improvements made to the AI sacking in the women's game. Fan reactions to transfers will now be more accurately displayed. The OPT and the FRT status icons will now display correctly. That is when a player is exploring options at the end of their contracts, and that is when a player is basically leaving on a free transfer at the end of their contract. So I don't know where they weren't displaying before. I feel like they displayed correctly for your own players, but maybe if you looked at other people's players, either way, one of those just nice things that's nice to be fixed. One of those things that you probably would never have noticed was broken. Fixed an issue where post-match player ratings data showing the fixture schedule wouldn't be generated. Players who trained in England for 3 years before their 21st birthday will no longer show as 0 years at club in the squad selection rules. Fixed an issue where stadiums without seats would display as having 0 capacity. No words. No words. Fixed an issue where the staff meeting advice did not show which recruitment focus you should be making. Fixed an issue where the transfer completed message doesn't mention that the player has joined on an ESC permit. Fixed an issue with the squad planner not updating immediately when trying to re-add a removed player. Fixed issues where various non-player rules would incorrectly be selected by default during the manager creation. Functionality to search through messages now works on all tabs. Near matches view is now implemented into the recruitment focus tool. Number of club members on the supporters card is now better displayed. Fixed a rare issue where the user would be unable to retire. Overall now appears as a type on the debts and loan card within finances. Fixed the board happiness logic with regards to number of goals conceded. I don't know what was broken with that logic. I feel like I have quite good defensive teams in this year, kind of compared to previous years. I don't know about anyone else. Kind of out of possession tactics has made me a more defensive manager, I feel like, unintentionally. So I'm not sure what the issue was with that logic. If you do know, please let me know. And that kind of applies to anything that we do read through today. Recruitment focus tile now only displays active focuses. User return date will now appear correctly when on the processing card and on holiday. Scouted players will now appear in the player comparisons list within the player report. That is really, really nice. Goals scored from penalties will now correctly be shown in the calendar view. Fixed an issue where going on holiday would skip past friendlies despite selecting holiday to next match. The list for transfer status icon will now correctly update the player report card when the player leaves on loan. Fixed a rare issue where the improved first team coaching staff promise would be deemed as a pass immediately. Fixed an issue where the promise to strengthen the first team squad at right back would fail despite signing a appropriate improvement. Just right backs. So if you made that just right backs, who got burnt by that? Who promised their team they'd improve at right back and then they had that issue? I feel like you could play for an entire year and just never notice that. More accurate attendances for cup competitions and friendlies in women's football. Fixed the award bonuses option incorrectly appearing within the staff contract negotiations. Staff members will no longer be described as a free agent when employed by the user's club. Fixed an issue where the delegate attends to press conferences button was visible when meeting the media for the first time. I feel like I got confused by that once or twice. Fixed an issue where staff non-contract expiry dates would be displayed as the second of the first 1900 within the staff database. Fixed an issue where managerial vacancies were not updating properly when a job was available. I'll be honest, I feel like the job searching stuff, especially if you're an unemployed manager, is really bare bones at the moment. I've not read any fixes in this kind of list regarding unemployed managers. There was a weird issue, I think it was, where women's teams just weren't showing up in the kind of vacancies screen. It was just only men's team that would show up as kind of needing kind of new managers. I feel like that's one of those fixes and one of those issues. And I think it was fixed in a past update where they almost don't want to mention it in the patch notes because it doesn't really reflect very well, does it, if when user starts as unemployed, just women's teams only just wouldn't show up in the teams needing managers list. But that has since been fixed. Fixed an issue where the user was unable to view the league tables for some under-19 division leagues. Fixed an issue where the user was able to request a team report for a women's team when managing a men's team or vice versa. Flu is no longer described as being caused by a training incident. Yeah, the players are just coughing on each other in the changing room. Since that makes none. Norwegian players will now have the correct knowledge of English language. What does that mean? I mean, in Norway, I feel like they're pretty good at their English. Does that just mean that all Norwegians get basic English as just a default or none? I've seen a lot of people mention that in America, all the American players' primary language, I believe, is set to Spanish rather than English. Has that been fixed? Let me know if that's been fixed. Okay, look, I'm going to level with you. I started reading through these competition kind of updates, and there is just so many of them. Basically, they've just updated the rules for pretty much every league in the game. It feels like there was something wrong. Which, on the one hand, right, I'm quite happy this stuff has been fixed. And some of this might be related to, you know, for example, teams that have qualified for AFCON. We now know we weren't known when the game first came out. Maybe the A-League salary cap for next season was not known until now. Either way, there's certainly some kind of bits and bobs in here where there's just fundamental database issues where the researchers have maybe got stuff wrong or things just haven't been implemented correctly. Which is, I mean, it's good that it's been fixed, but obviously a lot of these fixes typically don't retroactively work in existing save games. Having had a look through things here, there's nothing too game-breaking. But for example, if you want Sheffield Wednesday's correct points deduction, you're going to now need to start a new save game for it. So that is just something to be aware of. It does also go without saying, I will link the full patch notes down below. So if there's a specific nation you're managing in and you want to see the exact updates they've done there, you will be able to do that. Few online fixes here. I've not seen much of online Football Manager kind of stuff outside of the console audience. I feel like on console, the multiplayer is a much bigger thing, probably because of the nature of the platform. Admittedly, I've not even done a network game yet, but there are some fixes here for soft locks, re-enabling the disable following other human preferences. Got to have that one in to stop people sniping each other's transfers. Fixed an issue where all users would receive a team report if one user requested one. That's hilarious. Manager password, resume control password field text is now correctly masked. Enter/return keys now work when searching for a server manually or entering a password. I'd be very interested to know if you're someone who plays online regularly, what is the state of FM26's online play right now? Is it in a better spot than it was at launch? Is it still not quite there? Especially if you've been playing on the latest update, do let me know. And finally, in-game editor fixes. We're nearly at the end of things here. Updated access to the in-game editor to be the top bar button only. Added functionality to import/export attribute templates. Added a staff role option when moving a player who are eligible for staff roles at another club. Disabled the confirm button when using move to club staff on the user's manager and selecting an inactive team. So wait, you could hit the confirm button and move yourself to a team in an inactive league. Is that what I'm reading here? Who does that? Who discovered that was an issue? Fixed an issue where the allow squad registration anytime function wasn't working as intended. Fixed an issue where the men's and women's national teams' editable youth ratings were swapped. Fixed an issue where the nations declared at youth level was incorrectly named as declared for nation. Fixed various issues related to removal injuries and for both the player and a club. Job roles will now clearly state what club they are for. The enter key is no longer needed to search the in-game editor. Fixed an issue where the field for wages showed per week regardless of the user's setting. Fixed an issue where moving a staff member to be your youth or reserve team manager would also remove you from your manager's job. How does that exist as an issue? Like, how is that an issue? So if you move a staff member to be a reserve or youth team manager at your team, you just got fired. There are some issues here where you have to question, How did they not get found? But also, who found them? Who was the unfortunate person who discovered that was a thing? And last but not least, there's one final update. We're nearly there. When adding homegrown eligibility to a player, only clubs from the respective men's/women's database will now display. There you go. That is the update that has come out. Now, what are my thoughts on this? Firstly, I'm very, very grateful that there is a fix as kind of extensive as this. I feel like this update, you know, it's labeled as the first big update. I feel like this is lots of refinements and fixes. I also imagine a lot of the stuff implemented here, and I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of the stuff implemented here was perhaps implemented or was planned to be added to the game before the game was released. Stuff like shouts coming back, I think that is a reaction to how the game was received. But there's a lot of stuff I'm reading through here where I almost feel like they probably knew it was an issue and it was just listed as a low priority issue that isn't game breaking and we will fix at some point in the future. And having now shipped the game, got it out, they've now gone back and fixed those lower priority issues. I mean, stuff like the customizable attribute coloring, that is great. The ability to schedule friendlies for youth teams, I know that's been frustrating people. I'm not convinced that with this update there is kind of stuff that's going to bring back people who used to play Football Manager daily, or at least on the regular, who have stopped with FM26. I don't know. It's a good update. There's nice changes there. I think they serve the people still persisting with this game. But if you've bounced off Football Manager 26 already and you're kind of coming to this video to find out, is this the update to get me back in the game? I mean, for some people, maybe it will be. Maybe for some people, shouts were the deal breaker. But I feel like I said, I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in this update isn't necessarily stuff that's coming as a reaction to how the game was received yet. I think we're going to see that probably more the other side of Christmas. Anyway, folks, please let me know what you make of this new massive update to Football Manager down in the comments below. Is there any major issues that have been fixed that have been annoying you? Is there some major issues you've been experienced that aren't fixed? Or maybe you've just downloaded the update and there's issues that you've noticed that have crept in with this update. Let me know your thoughts down below. Appreciate you watching. I'm going to go back and record tomorrow's Park to Prem transfer special on the new update. Until next time, take things easy. Appreciate you watching. I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.